My name's Neville Wakefield. I'm the co-curator of the show that we're currently at, Refracted Identities, Shared Futures. I'm also the founding artistic director of Desert X, which opens next week in Alula. To my left is Cecilia Bengalir. She's a visual artist whose practice spans performance, video, and sculpture. She uses dance as a tool and a medium for radical empathy and emotional exchange, and sees movement and performance as forms of animated sculpture. The Argentinian artist received notable awards for her works, including the Gwangju Biennial Noon Artist Award 2014 and the Prix de la Critique de Paris in 2009. She lives and works in Paris and Buenos Aires, and also has a work here in the show. To her left is Salwa Radwi, entrepreneur in spirit and creative at heart. Salwa is the driving force behind Nukta, standing at the forefront of Saudi Arabia's creative and technological renaissance. As the founder and CEO of Nukta, Saudi Arabia's premier blockchain builder and NFT enabler, Salwa is on a mission to revolutionize the tech world, empower regional creative enterprises, and usher in a new era of enterprise activation through blockchain technology. And Salwa's left, Random International, Hannes and Florian, who really need no introduction, but I'm going to introduce them regardless. They may not recognize themselves in this. Random International is a post-digital art group founded in 2005 by Hannes Koch and Florian Okras that explores the impact of technological development on the human condition. And we heard this much better expressed in the previous hour. The experiential group works across an array of media, including sculpture, sensors, lights, kinetics, video, print, and sound, often to create responsive or immersive environments. Early works such as Audience 2008 and Swarm Study 2010 affirms the group's exploration into collective behavior in seemingly sentient environments. This was catalyzed in 2012 when the work Rain Room was first exhibited at the Barbican in London and attracted a large number of visitors, in turn creating a different kind of dissemination of art, both in person and online. So the topic of today's talk is really the digital world and sustainability as it relates to artistic practice. The context, and I'm going to frame this conversation a little bit in terms of the exhibition that we have here. There are two things I think that the exhibition raises or questions or explores. One of them is related to light and the digital world. And I've been thinking about, changes and revolutions in the way we think about information in particular, and its dissemination, and thinking about Gutenberg and, how the printing press, invention of the printing press changed our relationship to the word, and how maybe light is now the new ink, and we literally write ourselves and read ourselves into our environment through light. So that was one of the underlining thoughts behind this show, and really about how this new digital landscape is really a landscape of light, whether we think of it in terms of individual works or the greater expanse of the city, and the development of Saudi generally. This new language is light dependent in some ways. And the other thing that it calls to mind is born in the title, which is Refracted Identities and Shared Futures, which I think probably reflects some ambivalence that we all have about what technology is doing to us collectively and individually. Is it bringing us closer together? Is it pulling us further apart? So with those two sort of general framing thoughts, I'm going to jump straight to Salwa to talk a little bit about, because you know so much about blockchain technology and this idea that transparency can be introduced into the art world and the NFTs. And interestingly, in the previous iteration of this show, there were a couple of NFTs. This time there aren't. Where are we heading with that, and where's the conversation going in terms of blockchain, transparency, the art world, and sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. Fantastic intros, and I'm very excited to be part of this panel. And you're probably wondering, what is a blockchain techie sitting on an artsy, sustainable panel? Like, why is she on this panel in the first place? And I feel like those are the main two terms that initiated the beginning of Nukta in the first place. So Nukta is a company that I founded a few years ago, and the core objective was, when you look at the Saudi scape, you can realize that there's billions of dollars being invested on the creator economy on one side. But in parallel, there's the tech economy that is also vouching for ownership and is vouching for push towards giving people their rights, basically IP, right? And within the art scene, you can realize that there's not a clear-cut boundary when it comes to how the creator economy functions. So now that the Saudi ecosystem is putting together the parameters or the rule book or the SOP for this new creator economy, the goal was, okay, I myself am an artist. I see the gaps, and I realize that there needs to be three main tools or three main gaps, I would say, that need to be covered, which is legal help. Today, if I'm an artist, how do I prove this work is mine after I am put into my grave? 1. 2, how can I make sure that if I did well on an artwork, how can I make sure my child continues to benefit financially from this artwork? 3, even when you look at the cultural landscape, Riyadh Art, Ministry of Culture, and others, today the way they prove that they own these artworks are through pieces of paper, which, when you look at sustainability, 1 is not very sustainable, 2 is extremely traditional and old school. So these were the gaps basically that we saw, and today, to answer your question, what Nukta is doing is we're playing this bridge in the middle where we sit with the creators on one side and we teach them how this economy works. Lots of hand-holding, lots of teachings, lots of recognizing how this is. It's an intimidating space, we understand that. But something we didn't actually predict, and what happened was we actually started working equally. I would say we're spending just as much as time with enterprises and government. So that's what Nukta does today. We work with enterprises and government and teach them how to get into this world so the creator economy is better equipped when it comes to ownership. And because the rule book is still being laid out, that's probably why there are no NFTs in this year's show, because we have to write the rule book so things don't go south, right? So I think we need a few years, and the people who are able to put together this rule book are really going to put the impact forward for the years to come.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there are really interesting questions about the IP of artwork and how we trace it, but I think we'll loop back to those. Cecilia, I was going to now talk to you and wanted you to talk a little bit about your transition, because you come from a world of dance and choreography and physical bodies and performance, but have really moved a lot of that into a digital world, into video, into the piece here has motion capture and other technologies. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from the physical, the visceral, the performative into this other space?
Yeah, in fact, speaking about sustainability, one can think that performance could be very sustainable because we mainly use our body in like a primary tool. But it's true that touring all around the world for like more than 10 years, it's many hours of playing and like being sometimes all the time in the real time in front of an audience wasn't exactly my way of expressing maybe my emotions that as you presented me in this way that I wrote about my practice of emotional exchange or empathy. Maybe I didn't want to be in that present time, and I translated my practice into animation and being able to show my work in several places at the same time without having to travel myself. maybe this was a main thing for me to connect with people which maybe my emotions didn't allow me to do it in the real time with everyone, because it's very exposing, and it demands a lot of exposure. I mean, yes. And it's not only a negative situation for not wanting to be there that put me in this way, but I also studied cinema in Argentina, and cinema and dance for me, it's the art of movement, and it became important for me to continue this practice of video. That of course I'm concerned about everyone, about the planet and the oxygen, how we can transform it into something positive, but and it's always contradictive using power, but with what we want to express, but there is a lot of things to be done to make it not so contradictive.
Yeah, it's interesting questions about real and unreal time, and actually this is a great segue to you guys, random, because I think in a way what I see with Cecilia's trajectory from the physical to the digital, you're in some ways doing the reverse. You're creating machine-driven environments, if you want, in which you're then introducing sentience and actually choreography. Would that be an accurate description?
I think we're only coming to terms with the fact that all the machines and technology and the electronics and the software and all that stuff is really only crutches almost to express ourselves in the actual things that interest or concern or bother us, and that's human to human relationships, I think, and experiences, and it's the human experience, the human condition of how we live in all of this. And I think that's, with us, it's led to an editing process. I think we can think the same thoughts with much less stuff now. Not always. Sometimes it's really important and fun and meaningful to have a lot of convoluted gear to say something with it, or make or create something with it. But I think increasingly we're interested in making our thinking and feeling and experimentation relevant to more people, and in that I think we need much less. And like Sol LeWitt was this amazing mind who could express himself by just leaving instructions, and I think that's something which we're like the human algorithm. It's a very simple choreographic approach, which we think will, in our mind, we shouldn't be there as artists. We really don't matter. It's more like something that we want to provide as a framework, and we've done it now a couple of times, and I think every time for the first few times we'll have to be there to fine-tune and see there are some really interesting angles on this, for example, which we didn't expect, like the whole flocking take. We can do that as humans. The vibe I got is it's like a hunting feeling. Like this is something humans used to hunt, and that's a terrifying emotional experience when you're in it. And that's it's not this sort of, we band together to defend ourselves. No, we attack as well in these formations, and you get really, it's a very strong thing. We'll do this a few times in different locations in our sort of imagination, and then it's literally a fax that we send somewhere, and then it can be done there, and we can make it locally relevant and locally meaningful, because it should be scored, and there's a really interesting and that can be a local, like we want to do it with a different composer every time, and I think that's a very nice and encouraging thought, to also reduce the stuff it takes to experience the art we make, and in that I think we're trying to do that. reluctantly a little bit and pandemically induced, I think our move into more digital, two-dimensional spaces. It also helps. We don't have to ship gazillions of crates to show this. We work perfectly with the local team here made 95% of the work. We just came with a few bits and bytes and a few human eyes and minds and to calibrate, and that was it. And I think it's a good balance, and I think there's a good direction with that for reduction.
And I think on the other hand, there's a different sustainability aspect to this, because we with a lot of the times we see an urgency to kind of we call them emotional prototypes. So to put something out there, how will this feel if this is actually a thing that we encounter every day? Because we'll not just stop, right? We'll not just stop. We will, like, as humans, we'll not just say, whoa, 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 this is enough technology, this is enough stuff. We will go, it will go on.
And go and go and go.
And the second thing that when it becomes really interesting is when the distinction between, oh, this is a box with stuff that can do calculations well, and this is a person, when the borders become, as it happens right now, and probably has happened more than we know, when the borders become a bit more fluent, we are, because like in the last, I don't know, couple of million years, we never had to, we weren't challenged to decide between, is this a machine or is this a person? We were challenged between, is this an animal that wants to eat me, or is it an animal that I can eat? So now we are at a point where we make things that we try to make as human as possible. Like even when we talk to something antique like Siri, our brain is not like, I'm talking to a computer. I know I'm talking to a computer. Our brain doesn't know that. Our brain is talking to a voice that probably belongs to a person, because nothing else has a voice. So there's, in terms of sustainability and how we sustain ourselves in that arrangement, I think that's also becomes, or we see that becoming very pressing, and that's also why we make things like what we show here.
Yeah, I mean, hovering around this whole conversation about behavioral pattern making and mimicry, of course, is the question of AI, which is such a big question. I don't want to get to it right away, but I think we've got to it. I think everyone's been talking about technology as being a tool. We haven't yet talked about technology as being something beyond a tool, having its own cognizance. Singularity, how these large language models could become entities unto themselves. So I know it's a huge topic, but maybe we could just have a quick thoughts about that and AI in our future.
So just to reiterate your question, like the idea of technology being a tool that actually gets like intertwined into our life and how we draw the lines. I feel like especially in today's, like if you look at the generation that's younger than like the kids that are sitting in this room, I bet they're on Roblox, right? And these are kids who know how to purchase online, their whole life exists online, everything is handheld. I've seen a 3-month-old child know how to unlock an iPhone, and I was like, how does he know how to do this? And just looking at these kids, I think today everything we build is actually for them, not for us. And that's the generation that's going to take over. So if we are able to recognize that technology is today in our lives, maybe it's a tool that we're using, as you phrased. However, that is their life. It's to them, it's not a choice that they're getting to make. It's just intertwined within their day-to-day, and that is just how they function. The child he knows how to choose the YouTube video before he can start speaking, which is scary. But this is the generation we're dealing with. So as long as we accept it and we are able to recognize that these are the kids that are paying our bills in the next 20 years, might as well build for them. Let's just accept it. And these are the kids that are the future CEOs, and these are the kids that will be on top executive positions when potentially we're retiring. So might as well set up a place where we can actually do it in our favor and build it in a way where they're okay with it, and because to them it's a no-brainer, but at least for us we know that we're choosing to build it for them. That's just my 2 cents on it, at least.
Thank you.
I don't think
anybody is ready to add to this.
Anybody is building for them. I think the when we went to Menlo Park in, I don't know, 2015, 2014, when there was the first, wave of Netflix attention grabbing, code was out, and stuff kept repeating, play on, how do you call it, like autoplay stuff. The people who own those Netflixes, their kids did not own a device. 5 years, 6 years after the iPhone was, that's now common knowledge. It's terrifying that it's not more discussed. They did go to schools which didn't permit iPad. They didn't glorify that. That was in other parts of the population, and usually the poorer ones, where it's like, oh, everybody needs to learn how to code, which is, in my opinion, complete and utter nonsense. Why? The AI can code for you. Like we've seen that after like 3 years now. You can tell some GPT to code whatever. You need to be a human being, and that's what we do not build for them at the moment, I think, and that's an utter urgency. I think the hope that just because some people have an idealism of technology for the greater good or whatever, I think there's a vast omission of understanding what's really important to teach kids, which is becoming appropriate human beings. And I think there's a vast opportunity in doing so, and some of it can be probably aided by AI, but I think, again, the human-to-human relationship, respect for nature and all of that thinking that AI will save us, I think is delusional. And I think that's something we shouldn't forget and not let go of too lightly, hoping that it will sort us out. Because I think it's a very human behavioral trait to just keep going. That we keep coding, we keep doing this, and we're seeing this in real time at the moment. There's all checks are off. What we're doing because it's money. It's like hard, late capitalism determining where this is headed, unless we band together. I think I think there is some urgency in community and collective togetherness to say, no, actually, let's take a moment and see how we want that. I thought it was sad that many people asked for a sort of stop, for a pause in developing this, because there is a really genuinely interesting debate hiding there in how we deal with this evolving, emerging life form, and super interesting questions that also will make us learn so much about ourselves in terms of how you deal with suffering, if you can keep something contained that might have feelings and so on and so forth, and which translates directly to how we treat animals and so on. There's so much stuff out there which is genuinely valuable, but not if we don't debate it. And I think that's an issue, and that only is taught when you do human to human, like the hard work with those guys.
It seems a bit like that. It's even that it's a very special one. It's still a tool, right? Or it's something that we develop to ideally make things easier. And like in history, I think there were lots of points where everyone thought this will be the big thing that will actually make us better humans. But in the end, we're the people. We are the ones who still make this stuff. Maybe that will change through this, but it can only be as good as the like as the basis is, and if it's a tool, it can be used for the good or the bad. If we don't keep on improving the
source code,
the source, yeah, if you want to focus on the end without getting the basis right, I think it's a false wish to think, oh, this will make everything better, because it also might drive us apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I think how we look at it at the moment is slightly skewed.
I fully agree that there's a certain immodesty. Yeah, every age thinks it's on the cusp of a paradigm shift, and maybe we're not. But going back to this question of whether, what's the saying, whether we've inherited the planet from whether we've inherited the planet from our parents or borrowed it from our children. What's the role of artists in particular versus people working directly in tech in terms of positioning us in relation to these two ideas? One which is what we have, and the other which is what we will have or may not have.
Well, question, because everybody have a different sense of responsibility. I mean, yeah, it's true that it's very exciting to speculate with the intelligence that is not ours and that can lead us into chaos, confusion, and excitement or responses. But of course, when we look at very simple or primary rituals of, for example, dance or like gathering of like ritual everyday life that are still meaningful and we still practice them, it's not that we're disconnected from that it's also old and inherited in the sense what we inherit and what we borrow. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, because there is also a morality, of course, in it. And I can think about Spinoza when he says that if we don't compose with something or with each other, we decompose. So there is a sense of ethic, maybe. It's the book of ethic in this, that every artist have a different responsibility or want to engage in a different way with these ideas of how to compose with AI or how to decompose with it, or how to everybody can have different levels of manipulative evil inclinations like human has, and the contrary, I hope, as well, for artists. Not all artists are great ethic either, no?
True that.
It's kind of I think it's, or I would like to think that it's about that's about thinking, hopefully critical thinking about the basic about the rules that we follow. Because if you have an organization and the aim is to achieve a certain goal, I don't think you can then suddenly. Is it just the responsibility of the person at the top to make that fit a certain morality, or are we saying, well, we'd like to create culture that every point in this swarm looks at its own rule set, and maybe we manage to change that, or we manage to the individual to change the rule set slightly. I think that's my, I don't know. I would say that's my aim maybe rather than to say, hopefully the person at the top has this and this and this switched on, and then everything will be fine. I think we can't. I think that's something we can't and shouldn't expect, I think.
In some ways, though, as artists, you are role models, right? I mean, this is a world of great abundance that we're operating in. There's plentiful travel. It's important. The communication has traditionally been through travel. There's plentiful money and there's plentiful waste. So doesn't that mean that there's an imperative to do something, to have that role of leadership that I agree you're saying everybody has to do it, but aren't we more exposed and therefore needing to model something more than everybody else?
I think maybe not modeling, but I think there is with privilege comes responsibility. If you happen to do something that moves like a larger amount of people, then you might as well optimize for that and go, because I think whether in the end the base motivation is noble or ethically clean, it's a really hard topic. But I think I think with that we like to point the big gun in the right direction. I don't think that we do everything right, but I also think that anybody who tries to perfect her or his modus operandi will get stuck there. It's like the perfectionism is not a measure to success. I think that you somehow get, when you make your hands dirty in some way. But I think if there's and I think in that as a particular point, as artists, I don't think we should bother too much with tech. I think technology is usually a very business-focused thing. If that tech, then fine, it works with many people, then we use that, or we switch to something else. I think art and science is a really, really powerful combo, because they have very parallel lives in terms of curiosity and creative process. One is utterly methodical, very rational. The other one is utterly instinctive and completely random. And those work really, really, like I think I can see those as a very beneficial ecosystem that exists beyond, politics or, I think economical relationships. It's something that I think time and again has proven to be very impactful and far-reaching somehow. So I think that's where artists, if they want to scale up, don't go to tech, go to. I think that's a genuine. There's a lot of room there where I think, and we've seen that not only with ourselves but in general, when we've seen top scientists being thrown into artist pools and vice versa, like the energy in those combinations is incredible. Like academic institutions and artist residencies, that's a dream and really powerful. And I think that's one thing. And I think you can probably speak to that better. But I think more and more people who teach, who explore our humanity artistically with, and by that I mean the body and the voice, like things that we all have, and wrestle with these questions. That's a very, I think, powerful, far-reaching art form to pursue, and that starts very early in education. I think there's a lot of room there for artists to become active and explore.
Sorry, I was going to say, coming from more the science tech angle, do you see what you're doing as modeling something new or optimizing something old?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think when it comes down to, so like you mentioned, right, the tech is on the business side. And the art only comply when it comes in their favor. And in our case, it's when there are certain, let's say, creatives that are being taken advantage of, right? Their artworks are being misused. Their artworks are being mislisted. They're being titled under wrong people. They're being copied off the internet. These are all huge red flags, right? And this is at the end of the day, we live in a day and age where an artist should be able to call art their basically 9 to 5. Why not, right? So when you want to do that on one side and then you find gaps in the infrastructure on the other, I think that's where the tech element comes into play, at least in my opinion, to cover those gaps, because we've been doing it for a while, and the optimization element, like you mentioned, comes in from the tech sense. But obviously, yes, there is a capitalistic side to it for sure, because these artists need to make money at the end of the day too, right? And how can we make sure that they're optimizing on that? However, at least when it comes to our own company ethics, the line is drawn when it comes to how is the artist being hurt in the process. As long as they're not being hurt and the original value of enablement still exists, I think that's where we draw the line. Yes, I agree on the front where with the tech coming into play, it's a responsibility on who we give it to and who we don't. But in the future, it's inevitable that it becomes, like I said earlier, intertwined into our life. It's up to us where we allow it to touch us and where we allow it not to touch us.
Thank you. Cecilia, you were just about to...
No, when we were speaking about like how to get together and with, for example, science, I thought art and science, I thought that was a really, like you say, a really like great opportunity to be able to be in residency in different enterprises. In France, there is now a program that artists can go in residency to a bank or to a perfume company. I was this year in a IFF, Flavor and Fragrance. They create many perfumes and fragrances for food and shampoo and everything. And to get to know how scientists work here, or I was also working in the SIA, in the Astrophysics Center in Paris, and also in the last year in Luxembourg, in the iron melting, like recycling. So all these possibilities of being connected to the real world for artists are like so inspiring and so great to be gathering information from people who are doing actual changes in the ecosystem and in society and creating products that have a reality.
That's what I think is so interesting. Not for I think for artists, it's then often just another way of doing art. What happens on the other side, I think it's a real like and there's often the sort of nucleus of scaling in science. They've developed a new way to make food smell because they've worked with you and you said X, Y, Z, and suddenly. Like there's a whole, I think that the proliferation factor is so large on the scientific side because it's much more manageable and much more organized, and there is a reach, I think, which is super interesting, and that I found very, if as an artist you can just shift the perception there for a little moment, for a little bit, that can have quite a sort of cascading effect sometimes. So.
And I was just going to sort of explore this idea of whether there's an inherent contradiction between, the desire for physical contact and visceral response, and the desire to expand audiences. And do you think that contradiction is part of what it is to be an artist?
Is it such a contradiction?
A contradiction in the sense that one is is a remote form of operation and one is a visceral.
Well,
immediate
but if I think if you see your audience as real participating creator, as co-creator of the work, then no, it's not a contradiction. They keep just proliferating. I don't know. I can't speak for Flo, but I've got a feeling that we're not entirely comfortable among lots of audiences. Like that's not the thing, and we don't have to be. I think but the experience that we are, the sort of scaffold of an experience that we're creating, that is to be completed and co-created by the audience, and that can, in our opinion, that should scale. Like we're hardcore megalomaniacs in that. Like the more the merrier, because we think it's a good thing. It's comparatively harmless, and it's a good. It doesn't come with any strings attached. Normally, so it's a good. That sense of scale is great, but it's not contradictory. It means that we have to let go of our own agenda there. But I think that's also, working collectively and in this framework that we do, that's sort of comes with a trade somehow.
Thank you.
For me, can I say something? Or we finished?
No. Yeah.
No, for my experience of touring with a dance company, with my company before, for me it's more interesting to get a relationship in a long-term residence, that just showing the work in a city that I don't know anyone, and I get more informed by the process of meeting a new community to produce a work than by showing the visceral exchange. For me, it's more I don't know that word, I just invented it. Fruitful in the process of creating something than bringing it. And then when I bring something, it has already that process of viscerality in it. Like this, I come here for the third time or so, but I don't know really well the culture in Riyadh. So for me, it's interesting to get to know the place where I show something again.
Thank you. And so I'll leave a final word to you.
First of all, let's fix that. Let's show you Riyadh properly, since this is. Let's fix that and show you Riyadh properly, since this is your third time. We'll show you around. Oh, that's why. Okay. I think as a closing, I definitely see it's interesting. So I'm doing this degree at MIT called REAP, which is Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. And the core of the program is you cannot execute a thesis until your stakeholders are aligned. And that's the beauty of it. So whether it's the artists or the tech or the business or the dancers or the government up top, the thesis does not prove successful until there are common values and goals aligned, which is extremely difficult to do, right? So what ends up happening is there are levels of goals where each stakeholder himself is hitting a personal goal. But in the bigger picture, there are, like you said, the people up top who have a certain goal that they have to tick, that not necessarily ticks one of yours, but because they're the ones, it's the way the food chain works. I feel like just sometimes it gets to me sometimes. I feel like it's like this puppet show that we all live in. This is very difficult to be part of. But as long as you yourself have the values that you believe in and you try your best to stick by them, regardless of how fast certain realms, whether tech, art, or dance, or design go, you stick by what you believe in and try to execute based on the skills that you've been given. I think that allows me to sleep better at night.
Thank you. That seems a very good spot to end. Thank you all for participating. There's another round of talks next weekend. The topic will be...
Hello. Hello, I'm Pierre Sig, I'm Swiss. We have a foundation which is non-profitable. I just want to clarify one word from Salwa and from Hannes, because apparently, from what I understood, you are picking on the capitalistic side of the technology. And this I do not agree at all, because finally, with technology, all the artists can improve, can explore different features, and they can really express themselves. As a foundation, I can see all the artists, and I can realize that regardless with the technology, they can move on, they can move forward, you know, with different means. Then, and even though for yourself, Salwa, when you're talking about tech, it's protecting. You're talking about this capitalistic side, but I disagree, because finally with the tech, with the blockchain, you give the ability to the artist to finally to pursue all the track from A to Z, and they can get some royalties, which today with the tech they wouldn't be able at all to be protected. And then I can understand your feeling, but I think you should maybe we should have let me have a contradictory idea, because we use all the artists with whom we are working use tech and AI, different techniques, and they don't feel abused financially by the idea of the finance. You know,
I mean, we're relentlessly using the latest tech that we can get our hands on. I think it's more a matter of of balance, and I think, you know, I think capitalism it's not a critique of that in itself. It's just another form of managing cohabitation, and it seems to work to some degree. But as with most things, if it goes too extreme, you know, it loses the sexiness, it loses the authenticity, and I think in the.
What do you mean? What do you mean by extreme? Because when you go to ChatGPT, they have to spend billions and billions of money to go to research. They go through the research by spending money, and if you don't have cash.
Yeah, but it's, what I mean is it doesn't make for good art. That you know, of course, that's fine. Like I don't. I think where artists should. Or that's our experience, where artists' input is more has more meaning, is when it's more focusing not on the latest tech but on the longer term thought, because tech is very ephemeral, and it can be, you know, incredibly energizing, but I think one has to see it for what it is. It's
I just give you a small example, and look at anybody. Anywhere on the planet, if you have different application, you can be in Chile, you can be in anywhere in the world. You use the tech, and you can become an artist. And then thanks to the tech, because if you don't have the tech, you will never discover yourself that you will become an artist. You know. Then I think for me the tech is just a basic tool to anybody to explore his own brain and his own human capital.
You're not wrong. I don't disagree with that at all. It's more something that Neville said, you know, art and technology, and there was for a while, and I think historically there was a focus on artists working with technology so much, and I think it's a good thing to take a step back in moderation and look at what's behind the technology, because technology is mostly a result of strong science, right? Mostly. And I think that's where you want to be as an artist, because it, you know, tech this, tech that, apps this, apps that, cheap chat, whatever. The science behind it, that's the real, you know, that's where the magic sits. And that's all I meant. I have no disrespect or disregard for technology. In the opposite. I think artistically, that's a very personal viewpoint. There is a capacity of technology to seduce and to lead to bad art, and I think the better the technology becomes, often the worse there's a sort of some not great relationship. So I think it's also good to remain mindful of of that. But it's a tool. I think that I completely love tools. And
thank you for your answers.
Thank you.